on the outside, a lot of people would say I looked very successful and a lot to be grateful for. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be complaining about? But on the inside, for me, I was empty. I was more of a shell of myself. I was burnt out. I wonder how many other people go through a similar situation, maybe not at 40 years old, where they probably wish they had somebody pulling for them, encouraging them, a resource that they can go to say, hey, you're not alone in this. And that's what came out with Life After 40.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Salem Speakers Podcast. Today's guest is someone who has dedicated his life to helping people navigate one of the most important transitions of their lives. Philip Blackett is a speaker, entrepreneur, best-selling author, coach, and founder of Life After 40, where he helps adults transform burnout into a midlife comeback. He's also the author of Disagree Without Disrespect and the 5 Skills That Make You Irreplaceable with Artificial Intelligence. Philip has worked with organizations including FedEx, Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Chick-fil-A. He holds an MBA from Harvard Business School, a Master's of Divinity, and has built a movement around helping people thrive in the second half of life. Philip, thank you so much for joining us on the show. I am so excited to have you here with us today.
Thanks so much, Jacob. Happy to be here with you.
Well, before we get started, man, I would love for our listeners and for myself to learn just a little bit more about your story. So as we kick this thing off, what first led you to become passionate about helping people in midlife?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is that Life After 40 really came from my own midlife crisis. Like what we're talking about here, Jacob, is Thanksgiving 2024, which also happened to be my 40th birthday. So at that time, I recently relocated from Boston down to Orlando with my family. We were celebrating for the first time with extended family members around the dinner table. And on paper, on the outside, a lot of people would say I looked very successful and a lot to be grateful for on Thanksgiving. I went to the right schools. I got to work with a number of great companies, did well for myself, relatively speaking. I got married. I have 2 twin daughters. What's there to be afraid of? What's there to be complaining about? But at the same time, Jacob, something was missing. Even in the midst of it being my birthday, where oftentimes I'd like to say, celebrating your birthday on Thanksgiving is a setup. Because at the same time they're celebrating and singing happy birthday, they're serving you turkey and dressing and sweet potato pie and high blood pressure, basically.
That's right.
And so on the outside of celebrating, yes, there's cause to be happy. But on the inside, for me, I was empty. I was more of a shell of myself. I was burnt out from running a business before that had some tough times during COVID. I was overweight because I made some decisions trying to cope with the stress every day that wasn't helping me become the right type of person I want to be. I tell people oftentimes I was part of the 300 Club. But not the 300 Club you think as far as the 300, the movie. Like, this is Sparta.
Yeah.
No, wrong type of 300 Club, right? But the more important part was I was at a point where I was confused with where things were going for me at this chapter of my life at 40 years old, where I just was unsure if my life really had much meaning at this point. And so for a lot of people, it may be at 40, it may be somewhere between 35 to 55, which I typically call midlife. You reach a breaking point. You reach a time where you're reflecting as far as, is this what life really is about for me at this point? And then the corollary is, am I satisfied with this? Is this something that I should change or just settle in and just say, hey, this is just what life is about at this point? And the problem with that, Jacob, was I had a choice to make at that point that whatever move I make at this point, I had a choice on whether or not that was going to be self-constructive or self-destructive. Because a lot of people in this age, unfortunately, they make decisions that they can't reverse because of what happens in midlife oftentimes. And I realized for me that whatever decision I made, it wasn't just going to impact me. It was going to impact my wife. It was going to impact my twin daughters. It was going to impact my community. And so what basically happened for me was I decided to take a step back, go dark, away from social media for 6 months, and give myself some time to figure out where do we go from here? What do I actually do here? And
That's good.
so essentially what happened there, I was away from social media. I learned two things. One, the world keeps spinning, regardless, whether you're sick or not, things are going well for you, it just keeps going. And two, oftentimes people don't remember you unless the algorithm gives them a reason to remember you.
Yeah.
So at that time, I recognized three people stood in and helped me understand that my life still mattered. My wife, my twin daughters, and my mother. And in that same sense, I recognized that because my life mattered to them, it also should matter to me.
Yeah.
And that's what led me on a journey to say, hey, you know what? Midlife actually is worth living. And I also recognize if I'm going to keep living, I might as well live better than I had before. So it started with a morning walk around the neighborhood, not some huge extreme diet or some, weight loss program or something gigantic. It was just a simple walk around the neighborhood, just de-stress, get my mind off and that sort. And I liked it enough to keep doing it the next day and then the next day. And then later it got me thinking, well, what else can I improve in my life? So I choose better food to eat. I actually stuck with sleeping 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. And over time, Jacob, I got to a point over the next 3 to 6 months that I turned my life around.
That's
I had
awesome.
adopted simple, healthy, sustainable habits where I had more energy for my kids, more presence with my wife. And I felt like not only was I getting rid of the burnout, I was no longer part of the 300 club, but I still wasn't quite sure what my life was going to be like as far as purpose once I got through this journey. And then the question hit me in the back of my head one day during my walk. I wonder how many other people go through a similar situation, maybe not at 40 years old, but somewhere in midlife where they probably wish they had somebody pulling for them, a resource that they can go to confidentially to say, hey, you're not alone in this. Here's how we can
Absolutely.
get out of this together. And that's what came out with Life After 40. It started off as a website. Now, 200 plus articles later, we're now getting into speaking, education,
That's
coaching, and leadership with the
Yeah.
goal of just helping adults in midlife transform their health, wealth, and relationships so they can thrive in the second half of life personally, lead their families well, perform at a higher level at work, and strengthen the communities around them.
Man, that's awesome. And I'm glad that you're doing it because it is so needed in today's world. So now you kind of understand midlife crisis and we're talking midlife comeback. I mean, can you define, I guess, the difference there, right? Midlife crisis, the negative there, the midlife comeback, what you did. Do you have a definition for that in comparing the difference between midlife crisis and midlife comeback?
I think it all boils down to a choice, Jacob, because what I often tell people is that if you live long enough, you're going to go through your share of good times and bad times.
That's right.
Things that cause you to reevaluate where life is for you or ask yourself the tough questions, or even one of the toughest ones is that, is life even worth living for me at this point?
Yeah.
And so part of it is maybe it might be because of a loss of a job. You
Yeah.
might have gotten your foreclosed on a home. You suffered a loss of a loved one, the breaking of a relationship, kids going out of the house. Now you're an empty nester. Who am I now? A
Yeah.
number of things that, as I've learned, there's a lot of common humanity amongst us if we take time to recognize that. We all go through our issues. We all have our stories. We all have our tough times as we get older. But the question becomes more so now, how do we respond? Do we look at this as a crisis? Everything's coming downhill. This is just something for me to succumb to? Or is this an opportunity that it can be a comeback for us?
Yeah.
And the mindset for us, how we approach it, really makes a big difference on whether it becomes a midlife crisis for us and stays that way, or if it comes off as more of a crucible moment that allows us to refine ourselves to the next stage of life that we're called to be a part of now.
So let's say that someone listening to this is exhausted, right? Their health isn't where they want it to be, their relationships aren't where they should be. They're successful on paper, but they feel stuck. Where does that person start?
So I think the first thing that comes off, Jacob, is being honest with yourself. Because a lot of times we want to put on masks just to show strength on the outside, don't want to admit weakness or vulnerability, whether to our family, our spouse, or to our boss at work.
Yeah.
And so part of it is we get in this sense of we can just pull through day by day, but at some point we recognize, or we should, that our bodies are a lot different than they used to be when they were in our 20s. We respond to stress differently.
Yeah.
We respond to adversity differently. And a lot of the things we should be doing, we're not doing because we're repeating the same old habits when we were in high school and even college. And so now when you're in a place where everything's coming on top of you, you're having to manage everything. How do you manage it? So the first thing I think of is one, recognize what's going on with you. And then second, what is the best way for you to give yourself a breather?
Yeah.
Give yourself an opening to acknowledge things are changing. And maybe that for you might be a morning walk around the neighborhood. Who knows what it might be? Might be a bike ride, might be reading a book, might be talking to a friend. There's a number of different things because we're all different. But the point of the matter is, don't just keep managing it the way you had before. Stay in this go, go, go mode where you're just kind of going from sleep to work to kids to sleep to work to kids. Oh, by the way, your spouse too,
That's right.
kids and sleep. Because oftentimes, if you don't leave that address, it may come to a boiling point later.
What do most successful comebacks have in common?
Most successful comebacks I've seen, and I particularly take a lot of inspiration from people that have gone through really tough times, whether it's deaths in the family, all the way up to business bankruptcies. There's a thought, Jacob, that comes up where there's a belief that there's still more to accomplish. There's still more to go for it with. There's still more purpose for it. I'm in a tough period right now, and there's reason for me to keep going. And that if I just keep going and trust that something's gonna break for me, or
Yeah.
I'm gonna get some sort of understanding of why this all happened for me, not just to me,
That's right.
that will help us keep going. And so a lot of times we get so caught up in what's happening in the moment, which I understand because it hurts. That's
Yeah.
what you're focused on. There's
That's right.
pain. Oftentimes you're either trying to relieve it or you're trying to escape from it. Either way, we got to be careful on how we do either one,
Yeah.
but also taking a mindset approach of, okay, we've survived everything we've been through thus far. There's a good chance we can survive this if we give ourselves a fighting chance.
That's right.
And oftentimes we make sense of life looking at it backwards, connecting the dots rather than forward. And oftentimes, if we have that trust, and for a lot of people, trust in something bigger than themselves, that message of why things happen the way they had and where we go from here can illuminate itself to us at the proper time.
One of the things that I appreciate about your message is that it's not just about career success. It's about life and all areas of life. Why do you think family and relationships play such a critical role in a person's comeback after that midlife crisis?
So I think one of the biggest risks we can take, Jacob, is going through life on our own, isolated. Like I've been there where I had been unemployed, lived out of town in New
Mm.
Jersey, in my own place by myself, gotten behind on bills, wasn't so sure how long before they took the lights off. And it was just me. And I recognized at that point, a lot of people can go a different way on this one. And what helped me oftentimes was some sort of connection with friends that I trusted or family members to help keep me going. Because oftentimes when you're just immersed in just your own thoughts, whether enlightened thoughts or dark thoughts. That plays a role as far as where you go from there.
Yeah.
So oftentimes it's helpful to have some sort of connection, even if it's just one person that can help you understand, hey, I'm here with you. I'm supporting you. If you need a lifeline, if you need someone to help walk you through the next step, no matter how hard it can be, I'm here for you. Because oftentimes, especially in the world today that's surrounded by, cell phones and internet and social media, especially, a lot of people say that we're in the loneliest period in our lives compared to past generations. So you got a lot of people that are trying to figure things out on their own. And oftentimes they may not have what they need to make the right decision. And oftentimes what can make the difference between a healthy decision and an unhealthy decision may very well be based on who they're connected with at the time.
When someone reaches midlife, how should that person begin thinking about the concept of legacy?
One of the thoughts I think about, Jacob, is, when I share with you my story of my own midlife crisis, one of the things that really propelled me to try to make the right decision was recognizing that it's not all about me right now. I got something to consider in terms of I have a wife that's dependent on me. I got twin daughters that are dependent on me. And for some people, it doesn't stop them from making a drastic decision that they can't ever reverse, leaving their family behind to fend for themselves. But I knew that whatever I was going through, there was a legacy I was still building each day. And I had to be there to continue building it. What is the legacy for my wife and I's marriage going to be like? And
Yeah.
how is that going to be an example for other people in terms of relationships? What's the example I'm going to lead to my kids? Something that's been passed down to me from my mom was the thought of when I was growing up and I started going to college and the real world, my mom said to me, Philip, you've been kind of used to succeeding in almost everything you do, which is great. But here's my biggest concern. What are you going to do when things don't go well for you?
Yeah.
What are you going to do when life hits you in the mouth? Are you going to quit? Are you going to have a pity party for yourself?
That's right.
How will you respond? And that same question I want to be able to ask my daughters as they grow up into the real world, which can be pretty hard, harsh, and unforgiving. What are you going to do when life doesn't go your way? And I want them to be able to say, I followed your example, Dad.
That's right.
I can't be that example if I'm not here, Jacob.
That's right.
And so the thought is that for a lot of us, when we go through tough times, you got to think about it in the sense of, yes, we're hurting, we're going through something tough, but people are watching us. And it may be our own family, maybe the next generation. And the thought should be, how are we going to live our lives in a way that shows people, hey, life is tough. We all go through our issues. But a lot of times we have the utmost appreciation and reverence for people that say, hey, it's tough, but I'm going to tough it out. There's a reason for me to keep going. And that's an opportunity for us to have that sort of legacy built, not just on inheritance and, leaving money behind and possessions, but more so stories of grit, stories of courage, stories of faith under pressure,
Right.
faith over fear. And that's the type of thing I want to be able to leave not only for my family, but also inspire others to do the same for their own communities as well.
You mentioned your wife is watching and your twin daughters are watching. What do you hope that your daughters could learn from the way that you're living your life now?
I think the biggest thing I want them to learn is that life is not easy. We as parents want to protect our kids from every bad thing possible, even to the point of not having them ride a bike because we're afraid of the inevitable. They're going to fall.
That's right.
They're going to skin their knee. They're going to cry. They're going to think the whole world is going down. And oftentimes we recognize at some point we can't protect our kids forever.
Yeah.
We live in a fallen world. It's not perfect.
That's right.
And we have to recognize that evil is among us still. And bad people can do bad things, just like
Yeah.
good people can do bad things sometimes too and hurt others. And so I think at the same time, because knowing we can't protect them from everything, I want to be the right example for them on how to manage this world for as long as time as I have left here. And I know my wife feels the same, because one thing about it is we often go to our parents for some sort of inspiration on what to do and also what not to do.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure on that equation, there's more things I'm sharing by example, what to do, and also more instruction on what not to do to help them out as they get older and they get prepared to enter this real world with or without their parents.
So unscripted and not in our outline that we chatted about. As someone who loves Jesus and someone who was working on their Master of Divinity, I have a degree in religious studies from Olivet Nazarene University. I think we share a similarity because you have a Master of Divinity in our love for Jesus. How has faith played a role in your journey as you went from midlife crisis to everything that it is that you're doing now?
I think going to seminary for me during the time I was going through a really tough period in my business I was owning and managing
Okay.
probably helped save my life.
Yeah.
The reason why I say that was because I had been in the church for a long period of time. My grandparents were on the Sunday school board and deacon and deaconess of the local Baptist church in Memphis, Tennessee. And I was raised by a single mother, and oftentimes a lot of support I got from family came from my grandparents in the church. And so the thought for me when I was going through my tough period and my grandparents were no longer there, I had to still get support and strength and foundation anchored in something. And sometimes for us, Jacob, when we have it anchored in people, it makes sense at the time. But part of the challenge we don't recognize until oftentimes it's too late is that no one lives forever.
Yeah.
And at some point when somebody passes on and transitions, where's your faith coming from now?
Right.
Where's your inspiration? Where's your motivation to keep going coming from now? And for me, I had to get back rooted in the word of God for me.
Yeah.
So going to seminary and getting grounded, getting rooted in his word helped me stay on the right path, even when things were tough. And even when I went through my midlife crisis, Jacob, and I was reevaluating everything in terms of where things are, why are they happening the way they're happening, and whether or not it makes sense for me to wake up another day and keep going and keep fighting. A song that my grandmother taught me in church, in Sunday school. And you might know of it. And the song is called Because He Lives. Because He lives, I can face tomorrow.
That's right.
Because He lives, all fear, all fear is gone.
Amen.
Because I know, oh, oh, he holds the future. Life is worth the living just because he lives.
Amen.
And so, from that standpoint, when I share with people that midlife is worth living and worth living well, part of that inspiration was realizing life is worth the living because of somebody greater than myself that came on this earth before me and helped reconcile me and you in relationship back to God in a sinful world that we all live in. And that's who I take my root from. Even if my grandparents have passed away, even if my parents passed away, even if it's just me, I know now where I get my help from. And it's from above.
Yeah, amen. Man, I'm glad we did that and segmented there. You know, without Jesus, we are nothing. Without that relationship with Jesus, we are nothing. And we are all gonna pass away, and one day we're gonna sit at the foot of the cross. We're gonna sit at the foot of Jesus. And I think my goal, as I'm even using some of my gifts, talents, and resources now, is to use anything that Christ has given me to, I want to wring the rag dry. I want to make sure I've used everything that He has given me, done everything He has called me to do, and that's what is motivating me in my midlife. I'm actually right in the midlife, a little bit younger than the what you're targeting. I'll be 36 here in a few months. But for me, I'm kind of mathing that out. And these thoughts that you help with are running through my mind. And so I'm so glad that we transition there a little bit because Christ is everything. It's the cornerstone. It's the foundation. But let us keep moving forward, right? So you also wrote a book. There's two different things we're going to be talking about here as we keep moving forward. You have AI and the future of work, right? So you also wrote the book about becoming irreplaceable in the age of AI. So there's a lot of fear right now. We talked about this concept of fear, this fear around artificial intelligence right now. Do you think people should be worried?
No, I think one of the biggest things that I remember Tony Robbins teaching us, Jacob, is one of the most valuable skills we can have as we get older is pattern recognition. And recognizing in history, we've always, as a human species, looked for ways to improve things. And we come up with new technology that disrupts how we've been living before. And it's also shown throughout history, we've always found a way to live with the new technology and to prosper with it, whether it's the steam engine, the train, electricity, the personal computer, the automobile, the microwave, the refrigerator, all those things, even social media, are new things that came around. It seemed a little daunting initially, but we found a way to work with it. And I think to a great degree, artificial intelligence is very similar. It may dramatically change the way we live, maybe even more than some of these past inventions. But I also think too, if we've been writing and watching movies talking about robots and
Yeah.
new technology ruling the day and that sort of thing, I think we also got to the point where it's like, well, we're not looking at human extinction here. What we're looking at is more of a human plus AI world, and that's part of our reality here.
Yeah.
But I do also think, Jacob, it does still come down to a choice. We can choose whether to learn this new technology, learn how to utilize it, and then be able to succeed in part because of it. Or we can make a choice like many have done before with past technologies. Oh, that's just a fad.
Mm,
It'll pass over. There's
yeah.
no reason for me to take a look at it. I'll just put my head in the sand like an ostrich, cross my fingers, hold my breath, and also wish that I'm right in the end and no one tells you I told you so. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of it has to come down to, Jacob, what is our choice going to be? Are we going to learn skills that AI cannot easily replicate and duplicate and double down on that? Or do we just run ourselves the risk of being commoditized? And when that company decides to make a tough move on whether or not to keep some people on the team or not, are we on the chopping block potentially because we didn't take the time to learn? We
Right.
didn't take the time to adjust. We didn't take the time to learn how we can be the linchpin that they say, hey, where we're going, we got to have Jacob on board. We got to have Philip on board because they're going to help us towards the future rather than hold us back.
If someone wanted to get a copy of that, if somebody wanted to look up and get a copy of AI in the future of work, where is the best place for them to get their own copy?
So the best I would say is for that book in particular, as well as other books I've written on AI. Go to philipblackett.com. It has a list of all my resources that are available for people to get a hold of,
Awesome.
dealing with health, wealth, and AI, or relationships. They're all included there.
Well, let's talk about another one, right? So you wrote the book. You wrote the book on it, Disagree Without Disrespect. And honestly, that message feels more relevant than ever, too. I mean, you're just kind of checking all the boxes, if you will. So why do you think we've become so divided? Or teach me a little bit about what disagree without disrespect really means.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing, Jacob, is recognizing that our world, for better or for worse, I would probably argue for worse, is becoming much more polarized, much more divisive, much more tribal in how we view one another,
Yeah.
simply because of differences of opinion. And so a couple years ago, I wrote this book, Disagree Without Disrespect: How to Respectfully Debate with Those Who Think, Believe, and Vote Differently from You,
Hmm.
primarily to help address this.
Yeah.
Because we're in a world today, especially with social media, that part of the name of the game here, Jacob, is how do I get more likes and comments and shares on my posts?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we live in a world today that people are much more inclined to reward those attention metrics based off negativity that's spewed out,
Yeah.
and how we can have a we versus them. And so is a bad person. And we just can't stand them. We hate that person. So there's a spirit of divisiveness that has pervaded this whole world in a greater field than it has before. And unfortunately, it is dividing relationships in terms of couples, families, workplaces, places of worship, communities in general. But the problem is we don't have a sense of knowing how do we best right that ship.
Yeah.
And I wanted this book to be a guide for people, whether, in corporate workplaces, in schools, families, communities in general, to understand how can we respectfully disagree with somebody and still love and respect that person as a fellow human being. Because I can promise you this, Jacob, if you and I spent a whole day together, I can guarantee you there's going to be a number of things that we agree on.
Hmm.
I also can guarantee you, if we spend a whole day together,
That's right.
there will be some things that we disagree on,
That's right.
whether subtly or passionately. But yet and still, that's going to be the case with everyone. So what separates everything else is, Jacob, how do I still respect you as a colleague, as a friend, as a fellow brother in Christ, for example?
Yeah.
Even if we disagree, that's the key, because it's so much easier to find fault in other people. It's a lot different skill to find common ground with somebody and allow yourself to have empathy towards that person and find ways to work with that person and love that person and respect that person in a way that can be a shining light for others, as far as this is the way things should be done. Because otherwise, this whole sense of division, this is not going to be a happy ending that comes out of it. And so I want this book and speaking about it to communities, the world around us, to help shine a light in a relatively dark world because of this division.
If there was one thing that you could leave with our listeners today, one thing that they could walk away with, what would that one thing be?
I think the biggest thing I would say, Jacob, is midlife is worth living and worth living well. You see, a lot of us go through tough times and we have to make tough decisions on how we persevere and respond to what life brings us. And as I mentioned before, sometimes it has us asking ourselves the toughest questions. And hopefully, from what we shared here today, it helps people understand that there's still a lot of life to live for. And the fact that we have an opportunity, we have a choice on how we respond to what life brings us, that not only sheds a light for other people to follow, but also supports the people we love and sure serves as a shining example for how people can go through their tough times and get through it and persevere, because you were the one that set the example right. And so, if anything else, just let this be a friendly reminder. Midlife is worth living and worth living well.
Well, thank you, Philip. That's incredible. And I think one of the biggest lessons from this conversation is that burnout doesn't have to be the end of your story. For many people, it actually can become the beginning of a completely new chapter, a completely new book, if you will. And for everyone listening here today, whether you're 25, 45, 65, the reality is your best days don't have to be behind you. You can grow, you can reinvent yourself, you can build stronger relationships, you can find new purpose. The question is whether you're willing to take that first step. We have people just like Philip here today, who wants to be able to help you take that first step with the resources, the experience, the testimonials to be able to do so as a speaker, coach, someone that we at Salem Speakers endorse. Philip, where can people go? Again, I know we mentioned it earlier, but where can people go to learn more about you, your work, to connect with you, to book you, to hire you as a coach or a speaker, or just simply to get the wisdom that you are bestowing upon us today? Where is the best place to connect with you on socials, and where can they go to actually work with you?
Absolutely. And so, to find more information and learn more about Life After 40 and what we're doing there, head on over to our website at lifeafter40.com. And to connect with me and see how we can work together, go to Philip Blackett, lifeafter40.com.
lifeafter40.com and philipblackett.com. Philip, again, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us for another episode of the Salem Speaker Podcast.